So in this video we're going to be making the walls for our grass and hole, which we have set up already, and you can see that in the code that we already have. So there's a lot more of the code. You can see up here we have our universal variables, and the setup function, and then the draw function, and then below that our customize functions, which we have being called out in the setup function there on lines 15 and 16. And here are the two customized functions, one for the grass, one for the hole. And yep, if you want to keep that mouse coordinates function down there, you can, but I'm not using it, even though it's being called out here inside the note on line 14. But what we need now is a new function for the walls. So let's make this a little bit bigger. That's what I was trying to do. Sorry about that. And we'll be inside our custom functions where we're going to make a new functions. So make the for walls. And this, of course, will be a function, if I can spell it right, F-U-N-C-T-I-O-N space. And, well, we'll just call this walls, like this. And it's going to be very close to the names I'm going to be using for the walls, which I'll show here in a second. But first, before I do that, now that I have a function that's being run, I'm going to come up here and just below my hole setup function, I'm going to call out the walls function like this, W-A-L-L-S for me. And of course you can call it whatever you want, wall setup, setup walls, the walls, however you want to do it, but I think walls is going to work for me. Last thing I really should make sure is that I've spelt that correct, W-A-L-L-S. W-A-L-L-S with the parentheses there and the parentheses there as well. So that looks pretty good, which means I'm now ready to, well, first you should run the function. Now that you have run the function in the setup function, and then you have actually created the function down there in lines 38 through 40. So do run this, make sure there's no errors. Like you saw, sometimes you'll see me make typos where I misspell function, or maybe the name of the function here where you're calling it is not the same as down here where you've defined it. Okay? Now mine should be working. It doesn't appear to be any errors, although I could be mistaken. But because of that, then I'm ready to start making my walls. And we have 4 walls, okay? And you can do this however you want, but I'm going to go first with the bottom wall. And, well, up here at the top, let's go ahead and do this. So up here, I'm going to define these as universal variables. Okay, now do I have to do that? No. I can actually keep these defined inside the function, but because we can, I'm going to. So I'm going to make the 4 walls up here, so it's going to be let, no comma, and I'm going to have the 4 walls. We got wall, bottom, and there I'm using camel case. After the bottom wall, then I'll probably do the top wall. So we'll go with the wall on the top. And you can see how I'm using those names, right? I'm saying what the object is first, that's wall, and then the second word is where it is at. Now, do you have to do that? You could say bottom wall if you'd like, or top wall, or low wall, or high wall. Whatever you want to put is okay, so long as you maintain the same usage of that variable after you've named it, okay? So I've got wall bottom, wall top, then I'll go to wall left, and then after wall left, we'll go to wall right. So those are the 4 variables I'm using. Notice I have them all on the same line, like you've seen me do before, instead of like I did on the last assignment where I put the 2 variables on separate lines of code. And just to make sure that there's separation between the variables and the setup function, I do want a little separation here, just so it doesn't look like they're part of the same structure for p5play. And down here, even with the draw function, I think that's a little close. So I'm going to give myself a little space there. All right, with this much, again, you should run the code. Make sure wall right. Look what I did right there. I misspelled right. That would have been a big problem for us. Wall, capital R-I-G-H-T. So look at that. I misspelled that. That wasn't on purpose. That's an honest mistake. But I found it and fixed it. So with this, then, I can start on my bottom wall. And we'll go wall, bottom. I already know that's what it is. Space equals space. And what do we need to do first of all when we're creating objects? new space capital S PRITE open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon. Now again, are you going to put in more code? No, you are not. You need to run the code, make sure it works. If it does work, then put in more code. If you have any errors, fix the error, because you should know it's on this line now. Fix that error, whatever it is, and then continue. Well, fix the error, run it, make sure it works, and then continue. So that should give us a wall on the bottom. And by the way, when you run this, of course, you're just going to end up with a square right in the middle, just like we've seen before. Hopefully we're a little used to that, which means now I need to give this bottom wall a shape. So it's going to be a rectangle, wall bottom dot. I'm going to start with the width, space equals space. And let's see, so we need to think about this, and it's comparing to the grass, right? We want to put a border around the grass so that it confines everything on the inside to the inside, well, where we're going to be putting the walls. So I'm going to be comparing this to the grass down here, right? See, there's my grass. I have a grass width that's 300, but what I want to do is make the wall on the bottom have exactly the same width as the grass width. So that's what I am going to do. I'm going to make it the grass.width. Okay, now if you do this with the borders of the wall, okay, with the borders of the walls, this may cause a little gap in there. So actually what I do is I just add a couple extra pixels there on the edges to kind of take care of the borders, okay? And by the way, when you run this, you probably notice that there are borders for these objects. If you want to take away the borders, which I do want to do, by the way, what we need to do is go up to the setup function, okay? So this is going to happen in the setup. And just below the canvas here, I'm going to put in a note. We're going to take away the borders. And maybe I should have done this already, but I didn't, and that's okay, as long as we get it done. How do you take away the borders? No, capital S, TR, let me start over there. N-O, no, capital S, no space, T-R-O-K-E, open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon. And that right there is the code we need to take away the borders, because you're going to end up with the default black border for all of your objects, and we don't want that. I don't want it. Why don't I want it? Well, I'll kind of explain it later. Hopefully I don't forget. Yeah, so anyways, this wall now has no border, and by adding the extra 2 pixels on the end there, that turns out very nice once we get the other walls situated. Okay, now I'm keeping this wall pretty much the same width as the grass, which means that if I want the border to look nice, I'm going to have to extend the side walls a little bit further up and down based on the grass and then the wall heights. So that gives me a wall width. Now we'll put in a bottom, and again, you should have run that code before you put in any more code. So I'm going to go to height wallBottom.height space equals space, and our bottom wall height. I'm just going to put in a number myself there. Good. Well, yeah, 15 is pretty good. So that's going to force the wall to have, it's going to be a little bit more narrow. And again, it's going to end up right in the middle of the screen. Do run this, make sure it works. If it works, we can go on to do more code. If it doesn't, don't do more code. Figure out where your error is and fix it. But I need to put this in its proper location. Now, I don't need an X on this one. I do not need an X because it's already going to be centered in the middle of the canvas, just like down here. Remember, we made this note, and we don't need a grass.x because it's centered already on the canvas. So this one's already going to be centered with the X. So what I need then is a Y. Space equals space. And again, I want the bottom to be related to the grass. So I'm going to make it be according to the grass.y. Okay, now that's going to center that also with the grass's center, which is where that's why that the grass y is. But I want it to go down for the y. So remember what operation we need to make that go down? It's plus. So I'm going to take this grass.height. So I have it centered with where the grass is. Now by adding the grass height, that's going to make it go down however tall the grass is, but I don't want it to go down the full height of the grass. Again, it's right in the middle, so I need to take that and divide it by 2. Now that's going to put the center of the wall bottom at right at the edge of the bottom of the grass. That's what this does right here. But I just want the top edge of the bottom wall to be on the bottom edge of the grass. So to do that, I've got to now add, because again, I'm going to make it go down based on the wall bottom.height. Now I don't want to take it down the whole bottom wall height. Again, the center of it is at the bottom of the grass, so I only need half of it. Okay, so that's also divided by 2. Again, go ahead and make sure that this works, run it. If it does work, then do more code. If it doesn't work, fix it, and then do more code. So that places the bottom wall exactly where we want it. And then next up, remember, and there's a couple different ways to go. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the wall bottom, and usually what I would do, because if you keep pressing run, 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 you notice that the color of that is changing. Let's just maintain the same color. And for me, I'm going to make this orange. Just straight orange, okay? So I don't need a hex color picker. I don't need to go to a color name. I mean, that is a name, but I don't need to find it. I know what orange is. So I'm going to stick with orange as my wall color. Now that means that the rest of the walls that I make, I would want to have the same color. Do you have to do that? No, you don't. But that's what I'm going to do here. Last up is with this bottom wall, remember we're going to be hitting a ball all around the screen. And if it hits the bottom wall, then we don't want that wall to move, which means that we need a collider code for that. So think about what code we need that. wallBottom.collider, space equals space, that's our collider code. And again, think about what type of collider code we want. Static. S-T-A-T-I-C, all in the quotation marks. Close that line with a semicolon. So again, static means it's never affected by gravity, not that we have any in this game, but it's also not affected by collisions. And that's what we're expecting, just in case someone hits the ball and it hits that bottom wall. We don't want it to move at all. So that, by the way, is good enough to complete that bottom wall. Next up, I'm going to go with a similar wall, the top wall. Top wall. Excuse me. So I'm going to go up to the names here, wall top, and just kind of remember that's what I'm looking for. And we need to now create wall top. So again, think about what code you need. New, capital S-P-R-I-T-E, open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon. Run this code, make sure it works. If it works, then you can go to the next line of code. If it doesn't, you need to fix it. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on this one. And here, wall top, this one's going to be, it's going to be the same. Pretty much everything is going to be the same as wall bottom, right? So wall bottom, sorry, wall top this time, wall top dot width, maybe I gave a little bit away there. But if I want the width to match the bottom wall width. So think about how you would do that. And yeah, I kind of gave it away already, but I'm just going to make it the same as wall bottom dot width. Okay, so again, take this code, put it in, run it, make sure it works. If you have any errors, fix it. If it works, we can move on. So now that I have wall.width equals wallBottom.width, now I can go to wallTop.height, and again, I'm just going to make it be exactly the same as wallBottom.height. Okay, so those are going to match. The wall top height is 15, the wall bottom height is 15. How do I know it's 15? Because I can see it there on line 52. And again, run that code, make sure it works. If it works, we can go to the next line of code. And just like the wall bottom, we're going to go to wall top this time and give it a Y location. Now it's going to be pretty much exactly the same. But think about what differences there's that you're going to have on this. Okay, so before we took the grass Y, then we added the grass height divided by 2. Again, that put it right at the edge of the bottom of the grass. And then we added the wall bottom height, but divided by 2. Okay. Well, what's going to be different about this one? Well, all of this moved it down. Now we're going to be moving it up. So it's almost exactly the same code. Here's the differences. So I'm going to copy, Control C, and then down here I got Control V. So you can see I did exactly the same code. But again, this was moving all of that, it's moving the location down. I want to move it up, so I'm going to change that operation to subtraction. And I want it to relate to the wall top height, just in case that get changed. And yeah, make sure I almost missed that, the capital T right there. So what is this going to do? Again, first, this part centers it on the grass. By subtracting it, it's going to move it up the grass height, but we divided it by 2, so only half, because remember, it's at the center to start with. Then it moves it up half to the edge. And again, this is the middle of the wall top, and then the top wall, we need to move it up half of its height as well. So that's what that should do. So now, if you were to run the code, you have a wall on the bottom, you have a wall exactly at the top, and it's based on the grass's height and the width. But that's kind of what we expected, right? Oh, and yeah, if you keep running that code, you're seeing the color change. So just like before, we're going to take wallTop.color space equals space, and like I said, I'm just going to make all of my walls orange. So there is an orange wall. Okay, with this, of course, we're going to do exactly the same thing as the wall bottom, but now again, it's for wallTop.collider space equals space, and open quotations, this is static, close quotations, semicolon. So that's going to make it static so that if the ball ever hits it, it's not going to move at all. Well, that actually does complete the top wall for us, and that's pretty good. There was a little cut and paste. But again, what do you notice on the grass is that these only have exactly the same width as the grass. Of course, I added a couple extra pixels there so that there's not a gap in between what you'll see as the sidewalls, okay? But with the top and bottom, what we need now is we don't want the sidewalls to only go the length of the grass. We also need to add the height of both of these walls. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to start. I'll start with the left. So I'm going to go with the left wall, and we'll say it's wall left space equals space. What are we going to do? We're going to make it first. NEW space capital S PRITE open parentheses close parentheses semicolon. And the pattern is pretty much going to continue. First up, though, wall left dot width. So I'm going to make the shape. Oh, I didn't say it, but you should have done it. You put in this line of code. You should have checked it to make sure it works. If it works, do more code. But the width now is not the width of the grass. And if I want to maintain consistency with my walls, remember the two top and bottom walls have a width of 15. I know, well, I guess it was height in that case. This is height. Now I'm looking at width, but I want it to match, so I'm also going to make it 15. Now you could just say 15 like this. If you want to make sure they always match, make it the wall bottom. Now remember, it was the height though, okay? So this is going to store 15 into the width of the left wall. So go ahead and run that, make sure it works. As long as it works, we can move on. If it doesn't work, you need to fix it. And with this, now that we have width, wall left, of course after width should come HEIGHT lowercase. And what we're going to do is make it first because this is definitely what we want, the grass.height. And do we know what that is? Yeah, if we were to scroll down, we can see that right here. The grass height is 425. And that's pretty good. But, like I said, what you'll notice is if you run this at this point, there's little corners, since I'm on the left, at the top and bottom of this left wall, that I do want to fill in. Okay, so I'm going to make the wall left height the grass height, but I'm also going to add the wallTop.height, Height, and also that would be one of the walls, but also the wallBottom.height as well. Now that adds 30, but again, in case something happens where these change, then it will change accordingly. Okay, so again, that's the beauty of having these variables to use. All right, so we can go to the next line of code, wall left. Make sure that runs though, right? Before you do any more code, wall left dot. Let's see, we do need an X on this one because it's not going to be centered, and we'll put this at the grass.x. Okay, so that's going to center it on the grass. This is my left wall, so I've got to go to the left. That's minus. Now I'm going to do the grass.width. That would put the center of the wall at the very left edge of the grass, but well, I apologize. That's going to move it an entire grass width to the left. That may be off the screen, so that's why we have to divide it by 2. By dividing it by 2, that puts it at the edge, the left edge of the grass. But in addition to that, or subtraction, I'm also going to take the wall left.width, not the entire width, but half of that. Okay. So what does this do? What does this type of code do? Well, it means that up here, if we start changing the canvas and or the bottom wall height or any of these other values, these will change accordingly. And again, that's nice because if you do want to make some changes, you can in one place and not have to go to many places to do it. Run this code, make sure it works. If it works, we can move on. If it doesn't work, you need to fix it. So we have a wall left X. Now we need a, we need a wall left.y, space. And again, it should be centered with the y of the grass. So we're just going to go with grass.y, semicolon. So again, run this, make sure it works. As long as it works, we should be in good shape. So now that we have that position, again, the color is still changing. So let's take the wall left dot color space equals space, and I'm going to make this color once again orange, semicolon. So run this code, make sure it does turn orange, and that it stays orange even if you run that 100 times. And the last thing, of course, wall left dot collider space equals space, and this one is going to be also static. static, end parentheses, end quotations, semicolon. Now, I forgot to mention this, and I should have already, but when you put this in as is, it's a little bit too high. That top wall is a little too high. And so going back to the hole, well, the grass. Something about the grass we need to change because the grass is too high. And again, notice I can change this number right here for my height, and it's actually not going to do anything. So my grass height, I actually, I'm sorry, it's the grass Y that I changed. The grass Y, I'm going to change it right now to 250. So that's going to move it down, and that's going to be enough to show this the top wall. Okay, but something else happens as well. The hole, this number I found was actually a little bit too big, and so I need to change that 450. And all I did is change it to 350, and that seemed to work. Additionally, the Y now is too high because remember, we took the grass and we moved it down. So the hole we also need to move down, and I found by using 70 that it seemed to work pretty good. Okay. So by changing these three figures, it's going to be able to show the whole thing. You don't want to miss out on that stuff, because if you do, it was a mistake that I made in the last assignment, but now it is fixed. It should show everything very well. Okay, so we have a left wall and we have a top wall and a right wall, and that left wall should look pretty good now, right? There shouldn't be any weird corners there or missing corners with our hole. But the last thing I need now is a right wall. So we just called it wall right, space equals space. What's the code? New sprite, you guessed it. There's some more code. Go ahead and run the code, make sure it works, make sure there's no errors. If there are no errors, we can do the next line of code. Oh, R-I-G-H-T. Look, I misspelled that. Don't misspell your variables. Remember up here, wall right. So what you guys can do is click on this up here at the top, and then down here, it doesn't do it for me, but yours should have an outline around wall right here. It should pretty much highlight it for you, and it should show highlighted. Mine doesn't do it, but yours should. But that's a good way to find any maybe typo errors or misspelling errors. So with my wall right, now of course wall right, we're going to make it, we need to give it a width. And of course I'm just going to make it the same as wallLeft.width. Okay, and notice wallLeft.width is based on the bottom wall.height. So as if I were to change the bottom wall height, it would change this one, which would also change the right wall width. Okay, make sure that runs, make sure it looks good. Now that wall right is going to be in the middle, it's not a big deal. We're going to fix that shortly. First though, wall right.height, well, it should be the same as wallLeft.height, which has already been calculated up here. So I don't actually need to copy all this stuff in here for my wallRight.height. As long as the wallLeft.height is the same, I can just use that like a variable. Run that code, make sure it works. If it works, then we can move on. So wallRight.x space equals space. It's not going to be the same as wallLeft.x, but it's going to be close, right? Remember, I want to make it the same x value as the grass, so that's going to put it right in the middle of the grass. You're pretty much going to have an up and down line right in the middle of the grass. But then for the x, I want to put on the right, so that's going to be add. It's going to be the same code, grass.width. Again, I don't want to do the full grass width, so I'm going to divide that by 2, which is going to put it at the edge. And then I'm going to add wall right dot width, not left this time, and divide that by 2. Okay, so again, this is going to put that right at the edge, which means that if any of these values ever change, it will change automatically according to this calculation or algorithm. So run that code, make sure that moves to the right, just like we expect it to. If you have any errors or problems, then you need to fix it. By the way, if I've made any errors because I can't run this code, hopefully you know about them. But with the x, now I can go to wallRight.y, and of course this is going to be the same as the grass.y. Why didn't I do wallLeft.y? I could, but these are going to be the same anyways, and I want them to be related to the grass, even though if I did this one it would have been the same. I don't know, wallLeft is a little bit more typing, whatever. And last up here, we got wall, make sure you run that code so it works, wallRight dot, let's see, we want to give it a color, right, equals, I made them all orange, semicolon, and then wallRight. Run that code, make sure it works, and then the last one we got is a collider equals quotations, and this also is going to be static, semicolon. All right, let's see, let's make sure we got everything right. Width, height, x, y, color, and collider. Okay, so with this then, you should be able to run the code, and you should now be able to see, yes, the hole is going to jump around. Of course, I changed this random number. I also had to change where it was located in its y location. And then also down here, I had to change the grass's y also. But what you should have is an orange rectangle or an orange border around a green rectangle, and towards the top of that green rectangle is a hole, and if you keep clicking on run, it's going to bounce around on the same X, right? So because we're not ever changing the hole's Y here on line 89. On line 90 though, we are giving a random value between 120 and 350 for our X. So it's going to move around for the X, but of course it's going to be on the same Y line. Okay, so there's my walls. And of course we've already run it up here in the setup function, and I think that looks pretty good. Let's give ourselves a little bit more space with the customized functions, and yeah. Oh, so here's another thing you can do if you want to do this. So when you get consistencies like, you know, we got a wallBottom.color, which is orange, things like this, since they're all orange, what you can do is you can kind of give yourself, I'm going to give myself a note here that's just going to say making all wall colors orange. And I can do this with the variable. So I'm going to say let wall color equals orange. Now I put this in quotation so it knows I'm talking about orange. And then if I ever want to change the colors of my walls, I don't have to go to 4 different places to change it. And again, this is the beauty of using variables. I can come in here and just say wall color. W-A-L-L capital C-O-L-O-R, just like I have it right here on line 52. And I'm going to go wherever I have the color orange, I'm just going to change it to wall color. That's the top wall, the bottom wall. Now the left is going to be the variable wall color. And then down here as well, I'm going to make the right wall wall color. So now if you run it, of course you shouldn't have any errors so long as you did the same spelling. But if I wanted to change this to a different color like purple, I can do that pretty quick, and I don't have to go to 4 different places in my code to find and then change those colors. And I'm going to stick with orange, but again, you could do blue, you could do hashtag, I don't know what this color is, but you could do it. I'm going to keep it orange, but again, I only have to change it now in one place in order for this to make that happen. So why did I not put that above in my universal variables? Because it's not a universal variable. I want this to be with the walls. I want the wall color to be with where I have my walls being created, and that's inside of my walls function. So it's a little bit of a shortcut, I guess. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Again, it's just an option. So there's the code. Let's zoom out just a little bit here. There's 4 walls right there. Not showing the color. Let's go and do that. Again, if you need to pause the video, go ahead and feel free to do so. 12, yeah, we can see all 4 walls, the entire wall function right here like this. Okay, so again, that's not all the code that I put in. I will show it, but this is the main bulk of the code. So here is the rest of the code. There's the top part of my code. Now again, think about how many lines of code we have. I know a lot of these are blanks, but how many lines of code do we have? Yeah, right now we're down to 108 lines of code. I know it says 121, but again, we're not using all those lines of code, but we're darn close to 100 lines of code, you guys. So again, it's important for you guys as you put in code that you go back and or for every line of code that you put in, just test it, make sure it works before you put in more code, because there are times where students put in all this code, all that code right there, lines 50 to 87. Geez, that's like 35 lines of code right there. And they're like, Mr. Sal, I need help finding my error. And I'm like, well, where did it go wrong? And they're like, I don't know, I just put in all the code. No, you need to put in 1 line of code, check it, make sure it works. If it works, you can move ahead. If it doesn't work, don't move ahead. You need to stay where you are, fix it where you are so that you don't end up with that problem. It's so difficult for you guys to find errors if you're like, I'm just going to put in all the code and then hopefully it works. That's a lot of code right there. And by the way, that's a lot of characters. And remember, you pretty much have to go through your code character by character if you're going to be finding errors. I don't want to do that. I assume you don't want to do it. So don't do it. Do one line of code. And then if you have problems finding it, of course, you guys know I'm willing to help. But it's very difficult to help you guys. If it's like, here is our 35 lines of code, Mr. Sal, will you help me? Yes, I will, but it's a huge pain because it's like, I don't know where your error is. It may take me a long time to find that. And where a class may have anywhere between 30 and 40 students, yeah, it can take a long time if everyone needs help. So do yourself a favor, help yourself first. It's going to be the most important thing. It's one of the most important skills you'll get as a coder. Doesn't matter what kind of code you're using. Being able to find your own errors is its own skill. So I highly recommend that you get that skill right now so that in the future, when you have your errors, you don't rely on other people to find them. And you can do that right now by putting in one line of code, checking, and then if it works, you move on. If it doesn't work and it doesn't do what you want it to do, you fix it, check it, then if it works, move on, okay? So thanks for watching, you guys. I hope that helps. We now have, look what we got. We started with the background, right? We started with the canvas. We put in the grass. We put in the hole. Now we have 4 walls. You can see we're forming a video game right here, and I think that's pretty cool.